History is clear. No great nation, no great empire lasts forever. Yet the real reason they die tends to be ignored: moral decay. Today, two of the past century's greatest powers, the United States and Great Britain, are on the verge of joining the failed states of the past. There's a verse in the Psalms that haunts me on this matter. Psalm 11 and verse 3. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? While our politicians discuss what color to paint the nation's walls, they seem to ignore the fact that the foundation itself is destroyed, and unless repaired, the house is doomed to collapse. In this area, we can learn a lot from ancient Rome. And while many point to overexpansion, economic policy, military spending, and other causes of Rome's fall, the truth of the matter is that before the borders of Rome could be breached by the forces that would destroy it, it was already rotting within due to decadence and moral degradation. The renowned Roman historian Tacitus pulled few punches in addressing the moral state of his people. Writing around 115 AD in his famous passage mentioning the crucifixion of Christ, his description of his nation's capital is noteworthy. In Rome, to which all that is dreadful or shameful in the world flows and here is celebrated. Consider Seneca, one of the most celebrated Roman philosophers and writers in Roman history. Born in 4 BC and living as a contemporary of the first Christian disciples. His criticisms of Roman morals and culture in his day were stinging, noting that simple honesty and integrity were vanishing, such that mere agreements between men were no longer sufficient, requiring lawyers and legal papers to be drawn up to require individuals to live up to their ends of the deal. As for the state of marriage and family in Rome at the time, Seneca writes, "Is there any woman that blushes at divorce now that certain illustrious and noble ladies reckon their years not by the number of consuls, but by the number of their husbands, and leave home in order to marry, and marry in order to be divorced? Is there any shame at all for adultery now that matters have come to such a pass that no woman has any use for a husband except to inflame her paramour?" Seneca noted that marital fidelity had become extinct, and the lack of shame in adultery and fornication only meant that the rot of promiscuity spread further and faster. His observations matched those of a near contemporary, the Roman poet Martial, who implied marriage in Rome had essentially become legalized adultery. Such ancient accounts fit well with the observation of famed English historian Edward Gibbon, whose classic work, The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, paints a picture of a nation whose leaders became degenerate in character and whose military legions brought back corrupting vices and immoral practices from the lands they conquered. Before Rome became a ruin on the outside, it had become a ruin within. Let's examine just a handful of biblical guidelines and compare them to current American and British culture to see how we measure up. God stresses in His Word the importance of family and the marriage bond between husband and wife. In Exodus 20, the 5th commandment reads, "Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you." Elsewhere in Leviticus 19 and verse 32, we read, "You shall rise before the gray-headed and honor the presence of an old man and fear your God. I am the Lord." The 7th of the 10 commandments teaches the same principle expounded by the Apostle Paul in Hebrews 13:4. "Marriage is honorable among all, and the bed undefiled. But fornicators and adulterers God will judge." And in passages such as Matthew 19, verses 4 through 6, Jesus Christ reaffirms the definition of marriage as designed in Genesis 2, a union between one man and one woman for life. God cares passionately about respectful relationships between generations and between children and parents, and about the sacred union of man and woman in marriage. Yet in the U.S. and Britain, younger generations are casting aside the guidance and wisdom of previous generations And the nation's supposedly enlightened academics, leaders, and social engineers are destroying any traditional or biblical notions of sex, gender, or family structure, and replacing them with novel designations and configurations of their own design. One effect of neglecting God's design of and laws regarding the family, believe it or not, is economic. We estimate that family fragmentation costs U.S. taxpayers at least $112 billion each and every year, or more than $1 trillion each decade. In the UK, the cost of family breakdown is estimated at more than 50 billion pounds per year, or more than 60 billion US dollars. Ultimately, our debt is enslaving our nations. In fact, Bible prophecy says that the US and British descended nations will eventually be crushed by debt. The alien who is among you shall rise higher and higher above you, and you shall come down lower and lower. He shall lend to you, but you shall not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you shall be the tail. Yet the solution isn't more creative economic policy or more government handouts. The solution is to stop sinning, turn to Jesus Christ, and start obeying God. Let me refer to a statement by educator Vincent Ruggiero. He made it in his book, Warning: Nonsense is Destroying America. If we are ever to solve this country's social problems, we must acknowledge the moral bankruptcy of our time and the culpability, not only of the parents and teachers, but most of all the media. We must take responsibility for creating an environment that nurtures morality in children and adults. To pretend the Ten Commandments are somehow irrelevant to moral living is a violation of common sense. Founding Father John Adams once said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." The leaders of the U.S. and Britain should be seeking to turn their peoples to the God who created and blessed their nations. Instead, they encourage and enable the people's sins. Of them, God declares in Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 16, "For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and those who are led by them are destroyed." The only way to prevent great nations from dying is for the people of great nations to seek their God and Jesus Christ and turn from sin. It isn't too late. In 2 Chronicles chapter 7 and verse 14, God says to King Solomon words that are just as true today. "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land."